You're listening to the Fully Nourished Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Ash, functional nutritionist and integrative health coach, and this is the place where I help you bridge the gap between your unique female body, your hormones, and your feminine energy, and how they affect, well, everything. In today's episode, we're going to be covering the secret lives of my survival archetypes. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Do I mean me or do I mean you? We'll never know, but it's officially fall and I'm officially back. I know. I'm showing up in your feed on a Tuesday, but from now on, instead of showing up on Thursdays, I will be showing up in your feed, your podcast feed, that is, every other Tuesday. Now, I know bi-weekly is a little bit of a change, but I promise I have got some goodies up my sleeves, and I don't need to be slamming podcast episodes down your throat. I don't want to be throwing so much content you don't know what to do with. I gotta respect the feminine pace. Now, I will say, before we dive into the meat of this episode, which if you read the title, you know it's gonna be good, I have to give an honorable mention to the fact that it's fall, it's autumn. It's not faux fall, where it's really August and we're all just pretending it's fall and drinking our pumpkin spice lattes while we're sweltering in the sweat swamp underneath our Free People sweaters. We are officially post-equinox, which means it is 100% the season of embracing our inner basic bees, pumpkin spice lattes, Gilmore Girls, our cozy fashionable layers. And I have to admit something to you before we dive into more secrets. I was perusing through the mall the other day, which is a relic in and of itself, but I happened to stumble into Hollister. You know what? It does make me want to vomit in my mouth a little bit now that I say it out loud. However, I zeroed in on the fact that there was a full-sized faux fur vest. I was scared to go any further. This was right at the front of the store. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to brave it. I'm going to do it. And I started venturing in, and you know what I saw? I saw a puffer vest with a faux fur collar. When was the last time you saw one of those? You remember those? You remember the days when there was faux fur collars on our basic cotton hoodies? Do you remember that? Doesn't it hurt and also fill you with joy at the same time that our growing up fashion is back in style? It makes me feel like an evil genius. Like I am walking around looking at the youngins wearing these clothes and just going, you know, it is just so nostalgic and it makes fall even better, I have to admit. But as much as I want this episode to talk all about the glories of autumn, the glories of the fall season, I cannot waste any time because we have to dive into something so juicy today. I have some secrets to divulge to you, and I want you in on the secrets that I've been holding for a long time now. I feel like I'm about to explode. We are here for a much more important matter, to dive into the secret lives of my survival archetypes. Now, if you're like, survival arc what? I know. There's a lot to catch you up on, and that's why this whole season is going to be all about just this framework that I've been creating. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a long time, then you have hints of it because I've been developing this along the way. Part of this podcast has been about teaching, but part of this podcast has been about inner discovery. I've been working out these concepts and these ideas to figure out how I can actually help solve the problem, because there's nothing more annoying than someone who points out problems all day long, but they have zero solutions. It makes me want to rage a little bit when that happens. And so my survival archetype system is my humble way of trying to solve a problem while also having a little bit of feminine fun while doing it. Now, I touched in the last episode of the last season why I started to create these survival archetypes and what they are. And so if you haven't listened to that yet, pause and go back to that, get caught up, get up to speed. But to recap, as I've worked with women over the past, well, it's been a while. I don't even like to divulge it because it shows my age, but a dozen years, I have been working in the health and wellness space in some capacity with women. I started to notice patterns. And as a projector in human design, and I'm a sit back and observe type of individual, I started to really notice that the state in which a woman was in and how she would show up to either work with me or show up to nutrition and taking my course Fully Nourished would really determine the outcome. And for me, I want to help. I want to solve problems. I want to create solutions. I started to really focus on, okay, maybe I need to tailor the diet a little bit more. Maybe I need to tailor the actions a little bit more, the supplements, the protocol, right? And after years of not really having much success, I started to really recognize that this is not a protocol problem. This is not we need a different approach problem, which is what a lot of the health and wellness space is about. It's let's get more restrictive. Let's tailor this. Let's shave off this. Let's do this. Let's make it so complicated that we're doing these mental gymnastics to just live our everyday life. Let's actually take a little bit of a step back, because what I started to notice was that there was a bell curve to wellness, that their bodies would start speaking to them. They would enter the health and wellness space. They would start to care about their environment. They would start to eat a little healthier. They would start to become aware, right? To clean up their diet and their lifestyle. But as they started to increase their health and their health would improve, there became this bell curve where they would reach this peak and reach this pinnacle. And over time, as they got more and more obsessive, and this happened to me too, I'm not saying they as if I am totally removed from this. This was also my experience, is somewhere along the way, and you can't really pinpoint where, your health just starts getting worse. And you don't really realize it because you're super, super healthy. You've convinced yourself, like, I'm doing all the things. I hear that phrase a lot. I'm doing all the things. And yet somewhere along the way, you hit the top of the bell curve, and then your quality of life just starts decreasing. You got to a high point of feeling good at some point, and somewhere along the way, you lost it. And instead of recognizing that, oh my goodness, I've become more obsessive, or something's going on internally, the state of being I am in is contributing to poor health. Instead, it becomes this game of what is the thing outside of myself that I need to find that's going to fix it or going to make me feel better. And then we have this weird social media culture where health and wellness almost feels like a rat on a wheel. We have all these influencers dangling these carrots, whatever that might be, perfect health, perfect gut, perfect skin, whatever it might be. They're promising you this dangling carrot, and it's keeping you running like a rat on a wheel. And I really want to get women off the wheel and realize that the carrot that's being dangled in front of them is rotting. There's something going on. It's not something outside of yourself. It's not that something that's missing within you, but it's that you hold all of the answers to the problems you are trying to solve. You're just looking in the wrong place. True healing that integrates not just the body, but the mind and the spirit, or the mind and the soul, requires us to look within, go into the inner room. However, when we are in a state of survival, it is nearly impossible to connect to our intuition. It is so important for us to be able to clear through the noise, almost like clearing a path in the jungle. Our nervous system provides many layers of foliage that we need to wade through to connect to not just our values, not just our nervous system, but our intuition, to listen to that still, small voice that we all have. And the body is the vehicle in which we do this. It is our map to the great beyond, if we will. And so the survival archetype framework helps women meet their bodies where they are at. We are expecting a woman in one state to have the capacity to do something that a woman in another state can do. That's not always fair or appropriate, and it sets you up for failure. The other thing is, a lot of us are just swimming in the overwhelm of information overload, but we aren't quite sure how to pull all the pieces together. And then, after pulling all the pieces together, figure out how it applies to us. My survival archetype framework is designed to help you wade through all of that and to funnel it down into, here's all these concepts, from nutrition to metabolism, the divine feminine to the nervous system, to integrate it into one approach. And then how does it apply to you in the state that you are in? Now, I have to say that for a while, I've relished that I was the only one in on the secret lives of the survival archetypes. I was really taking a step back and observing. And I wasn't quite sure if I was even going to bring this to the public. Honestly, I've been a little wishy-washy about it for quite a while. However, at some point, some type of switch flipped within me, and I have grown tired of being the lone wolf. Or to be a little bit more biologically accurate, I've grown tired of being the lone bitch. And I would like some other bitches in my pack. Now, I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, and yes, I am talking about you. I mean that in the highest regard, the most honorable regard, that I would like to bring you, my bitch, into my pack and help divulge this wisdom of the survival archetypes to you. The survival archetypes don't just represent you. They don't just represent me. They represent our sisters, our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunties, the woman that we know down the street, our daughters, the woman at Bible study who may or may not annoy the crap out of you. Every single woman is going to show up in a certain state when she is stressed. And as we've talked about in this podcast, it's very easy for us as women to be shapeshifters, that our outer world can quickly become a performance that does not reflect what's going on the inside. All of us have a secret life, and it often puts us into a tailspin of chaos. It creates a vortex in which we feel like we are alone, like we can never change, that we can never shift, and we're always stuck because each one of us is designed to survive. We are master survivalists. And the way that we survive is by projecting one thing and performing in one way while having a secret life of our own. Now, of course, we all show up in survival very uniquely. It's like a fingerprint. However, what I've noticed is that most women have a dominant survival archetype that they lean into the most, that they learned is the most safe. Whether that be sympathetic dominance, fight, flight, or fawn, or collapse, which is fluctuating between sympathetic dominance and parasympathetic dominance, or complete parasympathetic dominance, also sometimes referred to as dorsal vagal. So freeze. We have our 5 survival archetypes: fight, the fiery huntress; flight, the wandering mystic; fawn, the devoted dove; collapse, the fading maiden; and freeze, the frozen oracle. And I want to dive into their inner lives today. Now, we're going to discuss them as if they are the woman next door, the girl you know at the coffee shop, your sister, your mother, and maybe you'll even see yourself in these profiles today. Are they based on reality or fiction? You'll never know. So the first one is our fiery huntress, and we're going to call her Boss Babe Brittany. We all know her, we all love her, and we all look up to her. We want to be her, right? She's got the color-coded planners. She has the perfectly branded Notion board. Her whole life is planned out in her Google Calendar. She has her HIIT classes and her Pilates classes booked way ahead of time for 5 mornings a week. She never misses a workout. She always seems like she has everything together. She just has her stuff together, right? Cold plunges, sauna, she's doing it all. She nails her meals, and you are tired just watching her. You don't know how she does it. Outwardly, she's killing it. She's the one that everyone looks up to. But if you look closely, there are typically 2 cracks in her facade. The first one is that she has a very difficult time with vulnerability. She will worm at the idea of being vulnerable herself. You might be able to be vulnerable with her, but she squirms at the idea of being vulnerable with herself or anybody else. The second crack is that she cannot rest. So she cannot let herself rest, and typically she can't let anybody else around her rest. She typically will look down on people that rest, or if not, she just judges herself for resting. But she has a very difficult time with rest. She may even be triggered by it or allergic to it. She doesn't know what rest is. And for a lot of fiery huntresses, they hold a lot of their stress as exhaustion that they hide and tension, typically like shoulder and neck and jaw tension. And so the best way to show up and love the fiery huntress in your life is twofold. Show her how to rest in a way that is self-honoring and self-compassionate. Encourage activities that allow her to rest. Go to the movies with comfy clothes on and a blanket. Suggest a movie night in really allow her to rest in your presence and make it a point to encourage her for resting. Like, you look so good when you're relaxed, as well as maybe even show up and give her a little shoulder massage, or suggest that you can give each other shoulder massages, because she's holding a lot of tension in her neck, her jaw. She may even have headaches. A wonderful way that we can show up for our friends is simply by just using the healing power of our hands to remind them that it is totally safe to let go. Now, our second archetype is the wandering mystic, and we're going to call her Wanderlust Willow. You know her. She's a nomad. She goes to Bali. She goes to yoga retreats. She's always traveling, going somewhere new. She has the most incredible Instagram pictures you've ever seen. She also is always learning something new. She's up to a new training all the time, or she's taking a new course. Always has a new hobby and new friends. She can introduce you to everyone. You typically look up to Willow. You love that she's a dreamer. However, there's typically one or two cracks in Willow's facade, in the Wandering Mystic's facade. And that is that although she's always flowing with the universe or looking for alignment, right? She's always talking about alignment. You'll notice that what she aligns with changes very rapidly. She's moving from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, because a wandering mystic never stops moving. She doesn't feel safe when she's still. So although you might admire her for being free-spirited and magnetic, which she absolutely is, you may notice those cracks of, oh, she's having a very difficult time sticking to anything, which is showing her underlying restlessness and anxiety. And she might be just one rabbit hole away from an existential crisis. She might be on the verge without you even realizing it. Now, if you relate to her, or you can pinpoint a friend or a woman in your life, then you probably know that she can be very difficult to pin down and can often ghost you or disappear for a while. And just know that's her nervous system not feeling safe. It's very difficult for wandering mystics to be truly vulnerable and truly grounded. And so you can really help ground her. You can be the friend that grounds her if you have the capacity to do so. And knowing a woman is a wandering mystic can help you relate to her a little bit more, check in with her a little bit more. Don't let her disappear on you, and definitely don't take it personally. Now for our devoted dove, we're going to call her Helper Holly, because that is who Holly is. She is the go-to. She is the helper. She's the sweetest person alive, right? She's always taking care of everybody else. She's the go-to gal, right? If you need cupcakes for your bake sale, she'll bake them. If you need to call someone at 2 a.m. to help you, you call Holly. Someone sliced their knee open on the playground, she's got a first aid kit. She's dependable, and she prides herself on being that woman. But somewhere deep inside of her, her facade, her crack, is that she's gritting her teeth, she's biting her tongue, she's choking back what she really wants to say. There's something inside of her that is sick of being taken advantage of. She wants to say no. She wants to stop saying yes to everything. She's exhausted, and she really needs to focus some of her energy on filling up her cup. And so for the devoted doves in your life, it's really important to see them and to acknowledge them and to acknowledge their backbone and their fire, but also to be really cautious about taking advantage of them, because that is their inner work. That is their healing work. And if you know a devoted dove and you're always taking advantage of her, you're always piling something on her, like she'll get it done, maybe be a little bit more aware and love her by taking something off of her shoulders, or coming up with a new way to take something off of her. Maybe even look for an opportunity to give her some rest. Now for our fading maiden, who we're going to call Tired Tessa, because Tessa is, well, she's tired. You see, Tessa, she has a lot of different interests and hobbies. She has Pinterest boards full of meal plans and vision boards and business ideas, dream projects like a podcast and a side hustle. You admire her creativity, and you also admire her ability to show up just as who she is. She probably has a self-deprecating sense of humor. But because of where Tessa's at, her inner world is chaotic and her outer world is, well, tired. These ideas very rarely make it to fruition. They never make it past the brainstorming phase because Tessa's tired. She's burned out. What once was fire or wandering or showing up for people is now turned into exhaustion. And you might notice that she's not been showing up like she used to. She might be saying things like, I just can't today, or I'm so tired. She might not be dressing the same. She might be sticking to leggings and an oversized hoodie, something comfortable, something easy. You might notice that she's scrolling on Instagram or doom scrolling more than she ever has before, and that used to not be her personality. That is because for Tessa, what once was is no longer. She has collapsed. Her body has gotten exhausted. And so to you, she might look flaky or unmotivated, but if you look beneath the facade, if you look beneath the cracks, what you'll realize is that she is heavy. She's burned out and she's just trying to muster up the energy to do daily tasks like the laundry. And so what you can give to the fading maiden, whether this be yourself or somebody else, is grace and compassion. And to understand that this is a state you're in. This does not define your identity, and it doesn't speak to who you are. It is a state that you have found your body in. And an acceptance of where you're at and your own capacity is a part of recovering from being in this state of fading maiden. Lastly, we have our frozen oracle, which we're going to call Chill Cassandra. Now, Cassandra, you know her because she's chill. She's chill about everything. She doesn't react. She is chill under pressure. She's chill in a survival situation. She is cool as a cucumber. You admire her calm. You admire her composure. She's always fine. And you might even admire her mysteriousness. She's very mysterious. But beneath the facade, you might start noticing that she's emotionally unavailable. She's detached. She's really hard to know, not because she's trying to hide, but because she's very disconnected and detached from that herself. And she's often wondering, is there anything more to life? Like, how do I feel more alive? How do I feel alive in my own skin? And that question is often driving her. Whether she's scrolling or reading a book, she's often seeking out the answer or seeking something to make her feel that way. And she'll often be attracted to things like true crime or horror or anything that's going to stimulate some type of emotional or nervous system response. And the best way that you could love Cassandra is by helping her meet her needs and doing that by leading by example, right? The only way that you can help someone feel more alive is by feeling more alive yourself. And take her along for the ride. So if you are regularly nourishing yourself, you're going to naturally want to show up with her by regularly nourishing yourself. If you're spending time with her and her kids and it's lunchtime, you make a very nice, nourishing lunch and you show her what it's like to live through small ways like nourishment. Cassandra's often very intellectual. She's trying to cognitively understand something that her body can't quite connect to. And so she'll probably be a question asker. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And it's easy to get annoyed with that, but just remember to lead her back to her body. It is my hope that these small glimpses into the survival archetype's inner world connected with you in some way, that you saw a reflection of either yourself or other women you know in these inner worlds, whether it be Brittany or Willow or Holly or Tessa or Cassandra. You can see these glimpses not just within yourself, but all around you. And each one of these archetypes lives within us. We have access to the fiery huntress and the wandering mystic and the devoted dove and the fading maiden and the frozen oracle. But each one of us is going to lean a little bit heavier into one of these survival archetypes. And as we befriend her and stop pushing her into the shadows and instead bring her up to the surface, bring her into the light, she will no longer control us and drive our behaviors, but instead becomes integrated into who we are and builds our resilience and our capacity and our resourcefulness. And maybe one day, as we heal these parts of us, we can therefore then go out and heal these parts of other women, because we as women are innate healers, but we first need to see ourselves to be able to see others. That wraps up today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you're ready to learn your survival archetype and get your unique archetype report, get started today by taking my free quiz at jessicaashwellness.com/quiz. Stay nourished, besties.